Our guest this episode is a technology professional with a unique perspective gained from his experience as a data center engineer in both public and private sectors. He's worked for over 10 years representing data management and storage companies, and he's been a featured industry speaker, thought leader, and technical channel enablement champion. He's currently with a company called Object First, where he is a technical evangelist and a go-to-market leader. Now, I've known this man for quite some time, and I'm pumped to have him on the podcast. Please welcome Sterling Wilson.
Welcome to the Engaging Personalities Podcast. I'm Anders Belanger, founder and CEO of Engagify, where we're on a mission to rehumanize business through engagement. We believe that we can all be more successful if we can command attention and deepen connection. So stick around to the end of the show and we'll reveal how you can be our next guest on a future episode. So let's get ready to engage.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Couldn't be happier to be here. Great to see you.
It's so great.
You're looking great as always, man.
Yeah, man, just hearing your voice, and I was just commenting, you got a great mic. You have a great voice anyways, Thank you. But the mic that you have really plays it up.
It complements it. No, I'll take that. Thank you.
Yeah. So for our listeners, like, hey, this guy sounds interesting. All right. So we will dig into that in a second, but I just want to kind of rewind. I feel like one of the first times I really remember you, so Veeam Software is still one of our clients at Engagify. We were known as the Infotainers at the time, but I met you probably work in the booth, but I also do really remember you from that one presenting for profits training I did for the SEs. The first one, it was like at an SKO. That's like one of those moments. And I just remember being blown away that I always assumed you were a sales guy. And then I think I saw you, with the sales engineers. You're sales in a sense, but on the technical side of things.
Correct.
And I was like, what? Because you are different and you stand out from the typical engineer, right?
I get that a lot.
Yeah, I bet. So how did you get into the tech side of things? Because you might be just an anomaly how you're wired and what your interests are, but can you kind of let's just go back in time and how did you get into the field?
That's a really interesting question. How I feel and sort of how I like to make people feel in the personal world sort of dovetailed over into the professional world. And then I found tech sales. So rewinding back, I've always been a technical person. Started off as a Microsoft systems engineer. And like you kind of read in that sort of verbose overview there, I've spent about half my career in government and about half my career in the commercial side as well. So really just building out data centers, Microsoft domains it started with, it went into virtualization. But all along the way, I realized that not only I had a knack, I also had an interest in wanting to taking the really technical concepts, complicated concepts, and boil them down so everybody could sort of ingest it, sort of understand where we're going with this. Maybe you don't understand exactly all the pieces that put this together, but we can have a conversation so you understand the why and the where we're going. And so really, and I'm sure we'll break this down kind of more, but really when I saw an opportunity to go to sort of that sales side of the house, that opportunity only became greater to take these sort of stories, boiling down these very complex things and turn them into, this is how we can help you, Mr. or Miss Customer, get to where you're actually going. Now, years and years ago, the solution was really more about you're selling your about how you're selling a particular widget. But today it's really more about the entire and complete solutions. And so being able to explain all of these different things and explain it in a way that you're going to help the customer move along in their journey, that's really what I've really embraced. And it's really what's drawn me to where I am in my career today.
Well, I think the more we go into the future, right, and technology gets more and more complex, it's already, I know some of our listeners may not be in tech and you were dropping like data centers and virtualization, and some people might have overwhelmed at that point. I don't know what that is,
that's fair.
Whatever. Right. But what I'm saying is that your unique ability to simplify, right. And again, like you said, boil it down and make it consumable for people. That's the only way you're going to be able to communicate and sell, these projects. And I'm guessing that when you're in a room with people, there are some very technical oriented people and then some not so technical oriented people, like, the further you go up into the C-suite and what have you.
Yeah. Now, okay, let me boil this down too. When you're talking to an audience, you need to have the technical credence that you can back up. You have to be talking about things that people believe in. But outside of it, and you and I both know, it's really all about engagement. It's really all about getting the people to step out of their comfort zone, to give them a little bit of information about themselves so that you can help them get to where they're going. So really, you meet people where they are and you create a passion about where you'd like to take them. Really, at the root of it, that is what we're doing. You even showed me so many things over the years of watching how it does not matter the type of crowd that you are assembling, you're able to get the crowd to engage. And that goes to a deeper level before, to your point, you get to the data centers and the clouds and all these things where it can gloss people over. The root of it is, I wouldn't mind interacting with this person. I'd like to kind of hear what they're saying. You know what? I know nothing about this stuff, but what you said actually does make sense. And at the root of it is engagement, whether I do it through some of my passion, talking about motorcycles that you can see on my wall here, or you with the way you have cultivated gathering these large crowds through, your sleight of hand, through your spoken word, all of the things you do, you're able to engage so that the message can be delivered.
You mentioned passion twice there, Sterling, and I think that's so appropriate because you are a memorable guy, right? When someone meets you, I've had this discussion with other people. Are you created or are you made? Right? Like, do you evolve? So I'll ask that question to you. Have you always been like this? When I say that sounds bad, have you always been like this?
No,
but have you always had this kind of effect on people, or did you grow into it and found it worked and you evolved that way?
Wow. This is the question that I like to go through in a lot of my mentoring sessions. We mentor and we are mentored, in that whole grand scheme of things. And really, ultimately, what I have to say about myself is I definitely had a sort of preconceived sort of motion to kind of go in the way that I would say more of an extrovert. That's a sort of a nuanced word because it can come out in sort of different ways, but let's just say I'm very comfortable with communication. I'm very comfortable with speaking to someone and, more importantly, listening, which is a much larger portion of this whole thing. But I've always been sort of apt to want to learn or to want to bring out something. If I'm in a room, I want to create excitement, but not for myself, so that everyone can feel and bring their own excitement. And I think that was always sort of there.
Interesting, because again, the excitement that you bring, and I know from our interactions, you tend to, you get excited to see someone again, and you're making them feel good because you're excited to see them, right? And it's kind of like, of course, that makes you super likable, right? Because, people feel good when they're around you, right? And so I think you've really, what you were talking about just before, like this idea, it doesn't matter what you know or what you want to communicate, and unless you get people on side with you, like you do, that's got to be job one. And I feel like that's part of the reason we're passionate about engagement too, is just that, there is this engagement gap, and until you can cross that, you can't sell, you can't tell, you can't do anything. And so what you're doing is great. So I want to ask you about tech evangelism. And when I first started working for Veeam way back when, I was like, I didn't even really realize the term, because it's kind of funny, because it's kind of like, can I get an amen for the technology, right? Like, is that what we're doing here? But you're representing, your company, and you're out there. You're kind of the brand spokesperson, if you will.
Yes.
What's your take on it? What's your definition of it, and how do you see that being? What makes a good brand? Tech evangelist?
Yeah. Wow, that is a multifaceted question. My first part of that answer would be to understand what your personal brand is and what you're going to do to dovetail the brand that you're trying to build. So we all have that work brand that we're trying to build, the company itself. and how your brand is going to sort of dovetail to really help that grow. There are a couple of things I want to point towards, though, is that first, interactions need to be intrinsic. That is something that I think you have in spades. That is something that I think whenever your name is mentioned in circles, people smile. It is because when they speak with you, Anders, they're getting the real person. You take time, you listen, you think, and then you talk back. And then when you're performing, you command the stage. I think when you're talking about being an engaging type of person, which dovetails into tech evangelism, it really comes from a passion of the root subject that you're talking about. So not just being knowledgeable, but loving this stuff, that you're not just on for a camera, but you could be sitting around with a beverage with friends, sort of talking through this same sort of thing, whether it's repatriation of data, or whether it's, data security, or whether it's, you can take these sort of obscure things and make them very relatable. What if someone stole your wallet? Where would you go to get it back? And you can sort of talk about this with data. So it's the ability to connect with somebody, being on that intrinsic level. When you're talking about the idea of sort of a tech evangelism, you are right. When I first heard it, I was like, so are we preaching? Are we up in a pulpit?
Yeah.
And literally, I mean, in some ways you could call it preaching. It's sort of preaching the word of what you'd like to get out, because what you have is something that you really know that other people will sort of not just consume, but find value in. So this name, I think, has changed a bit in 5, 6, 7, 8 years. It's been called the Tech Evangelist. It's been called Field CTO. It's been called Product Strategist. It's been called Technical Marketing Manager. All of these different things, and we can all sit on different sides of the organization, but we're all here for one reason, and that is to accelerate sales through understanding of the value, proliferating the passion, and then, of course, getting the word out, being sort of that spokesman that's ready to sort of say the value at any point. So whether you sort of call it evangelism, or whether you call it, any of those other names that they've gone by, really, we're here to get the room to engage and to move people to that next level of curiosity.
Wow, great answer. I know I have a habit of starting to ask one question and then I tack on a whole bunch of other questions.
I love it, though. This is
so,
yeah.
But you handled it. You handled it so well. Now, going back to one of the first things you talked about there was the brand, like the company brand, but then also the personal brand.
Yes.
And is that, I mean, that personal brand, let's speak to that a little bit, because that's important so that you don't look like you kind of got to be doing your own thing too, right? To have
Absolutely
some credibility. Is that kind of the take on that, or do you want to speak to that?
I absolutely think you pretty much nailed it. I believe the credibility piece comes from the authenticity and your history of your personal brand. The message that you're trying to deliver, do you have any tie to it? Let's step outside of the tech realm. If you're raising money for some sort of an illness awareness, do you have a family member that went through an illness? Are you raising something because you have a cutting edge piece that can cut emissions? Were you somehow affected by that? So the ability to sort of live in it, and if we're talking tech, have you built these infrastructures that you're telling us that there's a better way? And so I think some of that is your personal brand that you build. And the other part of it are sort of those extras that you're able to bring to the table. Going back to sort of that sort of mentoring sort of glasses that we're putting on now, we always speak to people about what you can do today, what makes you the best at your job, what you're going to come in and rock it like nobody else. But then there's the other piece, all of those other facets of you that you can give to a company. That's that bonus that you bring. Those are parts of the brand that are outside and aside from really what you're doing for the day-to-day blocking and tackling of the job, to sort of make the environment a better environment, which today, because of social media and other things, attracts customers just as much as the solution itself does, which is why that engagement is so key.
Yeah, right. And that personal brand is nice too, because it actually goes with you to your next job.
Indeed.
Right. I mean,
Indeed.
so that you kind of, that cachet you've built up, you get to store with you. So that's
indeed. I mean, that is what I'm seeing right here, right now, Anders. I mean, this company, just for everybody watching, if you're sort of not sort of in the same industry as I am, some of you may be, and great to see you guys if you are. Object First was created by the founders, Ratmir Timashev and Andrei Baranov, who are the same founders as Veeam. And essentially, we were created as sort of a hardware a repository that keeps that data safe and solvent in really a secure, simple, and powerful sort of way from Veeam streams. So very much understanding what Veeam did as a company, a data backup, data protection, data management company, data security company, and really what we add to that, that knowledge there is very much a dovetail, and being a known name from some of those realms and entities certainly does help Object First and what I can bring with the brand awareness.
For sure. Yeah, you've got that. It reminds me a lot of the people who were customers of a company first before they started working for the company. And this is a little bit different, but that same idea that you get that street cred because you know the inner workings and that kind of thing.
That's exactly right.
Let me ask you this question, Sterling. What makes a good, and you touched on this a little bit, but if someone wanted to be, a tech evangelist, obviously they have to have that tech background. They got to be working on their personal brand. Sure. What other things do they need? What other components do they need to bring in to kind of have the whole package, in your opinion?
Ooh. Can I boil this down to one word? And then this one word can become a conversation. Yeah,
sure.
Yeah, because I know you understand the art of this. You're one of the best. I'm going to boil this down to one word, my friend. Especially coming from an engineering perspective. So let's just say all of those things that you already have, you have the technical acumen. This woman or man is already at the top of their game. They understand how to reconstruct, deconstruct, all that good stuff. The ability to listen, number one. And the reason why I say that is there are so many engineers, myself included, we are trained and taught in an environment where the value is based upon how much you know. The value is based upon how quickly you can solve something. It is based upon who gets there first sometimes, yelling it before anybody else can, because I already knew this. I've constructed these 10 times, having that sort of acumen there is really what's lauded in that world. When you're on the customer facing side, when you're looking to get customers to engage, you have to listen first so you know what you're solving. It is not a natural progression for a lot of high-level engineers to go in and listen first. They're taught to go, figure out what's wrong, tell them what's wrong, be the golden armor and fix it. And what you accidentally do is you go in and you call the customer's baby ugly, because why would anybody ever build it this way? That's sort of that classic example of what not to do. And so when we go back to that question you asked me, what really makes a really good tech evangelist or somebody that's sort of in the way that you're getting to engage in your field, the ability to listen. Your ability to listen enables your ability to connect and your ability to have an intrinsic conversation where you're actually adding value, which is really our whole point here.
What a great answer. I love, when you think evangelism, you think preach, originally, like we were just talking about. So you think speaking, right? You think expressing. Yes. Right. And you came back with listen.
Because it's
like, and then you totally broke it down to that, I've been around the engineers enough. Like I am not an engineer, but I've been around a lot of them with all of our clients. Yeah. And you're like, that's the, like, they know everything. I know that, like, and they could have a know-it-all thing. Some of them, I'm not want to, broad brush with everyone, but that kind of idea. And so listening, and this, what also came up for me as you were saying that answer, Sterling, was it's kind of like men in a marriage, right? Like they want to fix things, right?
Right.
They're just like, what's the matter? I'll do it. I'll fix it. Where if they just shut up and listen, that would change things. So there's kind of like, you're giving advice on all different levels here, Sterling.
Absolutely. I'm like, and it's not to even put down the engineers, because I said we're taught that way for a reason. Something is down. We're losing millions of dollars an hour. Get in there and fix it. The whole goal of being a top level engineer is to get there quickly, get there right, and do it the right way. The one big word for the other side of the house, sort of that engagement side, the evangelist, the field CTO, the thought leader, the first thing is to connect. And so to connect, you have to listen. Now, at the same point, there are always the stump the chumps, as we call them in the audience, where they kind of want to test your knowledge. So you need to have that backup.
Right.
You need to be able to go there when you get those technical questions to keep the ball moving. So you have to have that in your acumen, but that's not what's on the forefront. The forefront is to really engage and really connect. And if you really go back to the roots of sort of the original meanings of the evangelism and everything, these are people that are connecting. People followed them for a reason. It wasn't because of their preaching. It was because they felt a connection to this man or woman. And that is really what this is all about.
That's a great reframe, by the way, because I almost think of the televangelist, right? Like when we go to that and coming back to like, they just want to connect with that person. I think that's a really good way of looking at it. If anyone was listening and they were going down that space, I think that's really good advice. And something else you said too, Sterling, about, that there's those people that try to stump you, right? Like it's almost like tech hecklers. Techlers. No, that's not that. But, okay.
I like that.
But tech hecklers, because you are so outgoing and you have, do you find you get that more than other guys? Because if someone came up who seemed more engineerish, let's say, they kind of like, oh yeah, he's the real deal. Like, do you get pushback because you come out there and they're like, oh, well, let's see if this guy is he just a mouthpiece or is he know stuff?
Yeah. No, that's great. I think I got more of that earlier in my career when I first switched over to sales engineering. So when I was literally the tech guy in the room with the customer selling. At this level in the game, I'm called in for some thought leadership. I think in a lot of ways, in some ways that resume sort of precedes me. Some of the brand that I've carefully built over the years sort of does precede some of that. But as you've just noted, I usually have a smile on my face. I get excited. I sort of start to talk fast at times. And to that, I do think people go, okay, is he just a mouthpiece or has this guy really walked the walk? And so in that way, there's nothing you can do about that. And so you do have to be prepared to sort of back up the colloquial knowledge that you already have there as well. So I think that's a very good point. And by the way, I think that's just my cross to bear and sort of people sizing people up in other ways. I know that everybody has sort of their cross to bear and sort of the way they get sized up as well. So, I'll take it.
Yeah, I mean, and it's just one of the things that stands out. Like I said, it's kind of like the first time I met you and I kind of went, wait a second, what's this guy's deal? So one of the things that you were talking about was your hobbies, and you like to connect with you through your hobbies. And I know I've seen on Facebook, with your helmet on and different things. So tell us how you do that, because in some ways you're passionate about motorcycling, but I am not a motorcyclist, but do you find people find that fascinating and the kind of a dangerous side of things, or how do you parlay that to create rapport?
My honest opinion, and I think this is probably a good little piece of advice or tidbit for anybody out there, just wanting to try some new things. Motorcycles are sort of my life, in a way. I love my family, my loved ones, all that. But that is the greatest passion of sort of the joy that I've known. I like skiing and some mountain biking. But ever since I was a child, I look at a motorcycle and I smile. There's a motorcycle that goes by me even today, and I find myself glancing to kind of see what that is. I raced motocross for a while, which are some of these jerseys you see here, mostly ride on the street now. That is my conversation starter. That is what always puts me at ease. What you're asking is when people feel that passion, when people sort of open themselves up to share what their passions are, I could be talking about boats, I could be talking about clothes, I could be talking about airplanes. I really don't think it matters. It's just a matter of opening yourself up to want to share something and people seeing that glisten in your eye, that's really what drives you. I am lucky that technology does excite me that way as well. But motorcycles definitely usurps that in the excitement factor. In fact, if you have ever spoken to anybody that's known me for some time, I was always famous for embedding motorcycles or dirt bike pictures right in the middle of my ever so serious engineering slide decks, just in the middle, as a bit of a break, had nothing to do with it. But every time I looked at it, I got excited. And because of that, the audience could attach to that passion. And I think that's really what we're going for, and that's really what you're able to do in spades. It really didn't matter that it was Veeam that you got connected with, though I'm thank goodness that you did, because we can have a relationship now. But you were able to latch on because of how you were able to engage and how you're able to bring people around. That was your personal brand that did that. And part of your personal brand is people can see and feel your passion, and it makes them want to jump in. So really, in summation, I would love to think it's the motorcycles, but I don't think it's the motorcycles. I think it's people that can see that passion, and they want to know more about why this passion drives you. Tell me more about why you're this excited. Am I missing something? Maybe I will go get a motorcycle.
This object first must be amazing, because this
Right.
guy is off the charts excited about it, right?
Exactly.
But and that's one of the things that we, when we're dealing with companies that we're talking about, is we need to instill some sort of emotion in the people we connect with. And I mean, and you're doing that through passion, through just by being, by proxy, right? By being near you, people get a contact high from you, right?
So.
No, it's true, right? And so, but we need to make people feel things so that we can motivate them towards something they want or away from something they don't want. And I feel like in business, just in general, if you start talking about emotions, it's almost kind of like, ooh, like, are we talking about, crying at work? No. Like, it's just that, when you talk about, I will often, when we deal with a company, talk about pacing the pain of the customer, right? Like, here's this guy or guy or girl, woman, whoever, that they're experiencing frustrations because of X, Y, and Z. If I've got a crowd in front of me, raise your hand if you've ever felt that way, and they're like, yeah, you're like, okay, now let's take them to the better place, right? So, that idea of, creating emotion is so important, and we need to feel it first, right? That's how we entrain people to also feel it.
Absolutely right.
Something else you said that I love, and again, it's the hobby piece, is that you threw the motorcycle pictures in the middle of your slides. And it's kind of like, you might have some sort of corporate approved slide deck. What's this doing in here, right?
This is the truth.
Right? And it's disruptive. It's a pattern, pattern interrupt, which is great because people kind of go, oh, this is different. Didn't see that coming, right?
Yes.
It re-engages the audience. They learn something about you. And I think more speakers and more people in business need to, like you say, share more of who they are, because now people are going to connect with them on a human level.
Absolutely. Right? And want to share themselves back, which I think is super important.
Yeah, right. And you, by going first, you give them license to open up. And you touched on that earlier, right? And so there's so much good stuff in here just to kind of unpack in terms of, person-to-person interactions and relationships, and really, all of business is a people business.
Absolutely. Right? I mean, it's personal, and that's why, you can't sort of, feign these sort of, feelings or vibes, or you can't, pretend to be excited when you're not. You just have to find what makes you excited and then rock it like nobody else can. But when you get there and you're in that lane, people want that energy. They can feed off that energy. They want to be around that energy. As much as technology adds to all of our lives, people still deal with people, and we want to deal with the people that make us feel a certain way, because that's the imprint we remember. Maybe not the conversation itself, but you remember when you see somebody, if it evokes a smile or something else.
Amen, man. It's a couple quotes come to mind when you said that. No matter how much you click from place to place, it will never replace face to face, right? This idea that and the Maya Angelou quote that, you might remember people, you might not remember what people say or what they do, but you'll always remember how they made you feel. Right?
Yes. Well said,
man. And you're also talking about energy, and I'm like, I think I'm getting a virtual contact high from this interview.
This is the best.
Sterling. So if people, here's a great segue. If people want to reach out to you to also get a contact high, where can they find you?
Oh, wow. You can certainly find me on LinkedIn, where we're producing a ton of good content. You can also email me. I'm sterling.wilson@objectfirst.com. And we're going to be producing something here. We are a first-year startup. We actually just went GA for 1 complete year. UTB, which is our solution, stands for out of the box immutability. And we're a hardware appliance that is zero access to root and some other really, really awesome security type things. We're going to be growing this brand. And so you'll see us doing some really fun things. We're diving into TikTok. We're doing some really cool interviews. We have a live web show that is not hit you over the head with technology, but a show that's meant to connect. So please reach out, please connect with me, and you'll definitely be seeing us at some shows. And Anders, I am so excited to be here and to be connected with you again. I can't wait to see you at some shows this year.
Awesome. Oh, so good to see you, Sterling. Thank you for being on the show. I really appreciate you taking the time.
My pleasure. Have a great day.
Thanks. And to all of our listeners, thank you for tuning in once again. And of course, you know what to do. Stay engaged.
Thank you so much for listening to Engaging Personalities. If you believe this world needs more engagement and you're an industry leader or you have an interesting take on rehumanizing business, go to go.engagify.ai/podcast-guest to apply and come on the show. If you got something out of this interview, do you mind sharing it on your social media? Just grab a quick screenshot with your phone and text it to a friend or post it on the socials. If you know someone that would be a great guest, tag them on social media to let them know about the show. Include the hashtag Engaging Personalities. I love seeing your posts and guest suggestions. We are regularly putting out new episodes and content. To make sure you don't miss any episode, go ahead and subscribe. Your thumbs up, ratings, and reviews go a long way to help promote the show and mean a lot to me and my team. Want to know more? Go to our website, engagify.ai, or follow me on LinkedIn. Thanks for listening and stay engaged.